Whenever I play a dating simulator, I feel like the goal of the dating simulator is to work up to the point where you get into a relationship. The one I'm going to talk about today that I discovered earlier this week actually has you in a relationship and starting one in the introduction cutscene, making it a very different take even outside of the fact that this is a Chinese dating simulator rather than the typical Japanese one. Following the trend of Angels of Death going straight from PC to Switch as console exclusive, here is my review of Gaokao Love 100 Days for the Nintendo Switch. The plot of GKL takes place at a Chinese school around Li and his friends, most notably his new girlfriend Mushin and his childhood sweetheart Yaolin, as they prepare for what is called the Gaokao exam, China's notoriously difficult and stress-inducing graduation exam that's pretty much the only determining factor for what college or university a student goes to if they go to any at all. And this is an interesting game as a dating simulator because, as I said a moment ago, you start the game off in a relationship. So instead of only building up relations with the girls around you, this game is more the struggles of being in a relationship, keeping it hidden from the school system, from your friends, and from your parents, and how all of the extreme stress from this part of China's society affects that. And that's a big part of the story for me. Tackling GKL basically goes in a couple different parts. My first run through the game was a huge eye-opener and learning experience to how stressful, strict, and at times cruel Chinese society and Chinese parents are regarding this exam. You see a lot of overwhelming stress through students trying to commit suicide because they're so stressed out, and Li being treated differently by his parents depending on the scores he gets rather than how hard he's trying. And once that kind of settles in, then you start looking at the more dating side of it, because it's not just spending time outside of school dating, it's trying to date, managing stress at school, and all of these other factors that really puts you more in the shoes of a realistic day-to-day life rather than some of the more unrealistic Japanese dating simulators. When I played this game, I felt like this could realistically happen in the way that it happened. But even with as eye-opening and interesting as the narrative is, there is a big problem called the translation. Almost every other bit of dialogue either has spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, misorganized words, and overall just confusing writing. It's not like it's hard to read and understand, but there are just mistakes literally everywhere. When it comes to gameplay, GKL is a visual novel with dating sim elements and a lot of time and stat management elements. You progress through the game going through your typical visual novel formula, where you're reading through dialogue and story cutscenes. But you're going to get to a lot of points in the game where the story stops, and you either have to make dialogue choices, or you have to choose a task that you need to do at certain parts of the day. And this is where the game gets more interactive and far more in-depth than many other visual novels. You have stats for all of your core subjects, your health, your relationship status with Mushin, and your stress level. And every choice you make affects these stats, both in positive and negative ways. You're a student, so you have to keep studying to get all of those scores up for when you take your exams. But if you study too hard, your stress level is going to raise and your health level is going to drop. So you have to be able to manage that, because taking a test with high stress and low health is going to result in a bad score no matter what your stats are for your core subjects. There are also a lot of big events that can happen in the story that will manually affect all of your stats. So you've got to prepare for tragedy to strike and still be able to work your way back up and get a passing score by the end of the game. Now, this is pretty in-depth for a visual novel, but there's a reason for that. And that is the branching paths and endings to this game. GKL isn't one of your typical visual novels where you go through and you just have one ending for each possible relationship. The entire game can change a lot depending on test results for early practice tests. Certain choices or bad grades could be the difference between breaking up with Mushin and getting together with Yao Han, or as life-changing as failing an exam and running away from home to be an online game addict, or being sent off by your parents to a military training academy. The game's got 61 endings over a lot of different paths that completely changed the story, making it feel almost like a completely different game, which I really like because it's not like you just change a couple bits of dialogue in the same event. It showcases a completely different life direction and how your friends react to that, whether they're still in your life, just friends, or abandon you. Not everything about this is great though. There are a couple little nitpicks that I have. First of all is a kind of a bug in the game that's also there in the PC version. When you do your first test and you get a passing score, you're supposed to have cutscenes where you're proud of your score and your parents are also proud of your score. But for some reason, when you do this on the first practice test, you still get some scenes where your parents chastise you for getting a really low score, as if you failed it. And the other is repetition in terms of some cutscene sequences. Some of the branching paths have little situations that pop up, dialogue for dialogue, word for word, in two completely different situations that don't really feel proper between the two scenarios. It fits for one, but it feels strange for the other. And now let's talk about length. The internet lied to me on this, like many other games. When I first started playing this game, I was under the impression that this was a 5 or 6 hour game. It is not a 5 or 6 hour game. I read pretty quickly, and I got my first ending after about 13 hours of gameplay. So unless you skip a lot of stuff or get one of the early bad endings, I don't see anybody getting their first ending before playing for at least 12 hours or so. And considering this game has 61 different endings you can get, there's a lot of replay value here. There's nothing really bad to say about presentation or performance, so we're gonna go straight into battery life. As expected of a visual novel, you can get quite a bit here. GKL has a battery range of 4 hours and 31 minutes at higher settings, all the way up to 6 hours and 16 minutes on lower settings. In other words, you're gonna get a lot done in one charge. Now, in conclusion, GKL 100 Days is a very different sort of dating sim, not only opening your eyes to Chinese culture, but starting a dating sim off with you already in a relationship. Now on the downside, the translation isn't very good and it's got some strange bugs and repetition throughout some of the story scenes. But if you can still enjoy the story with its translation, there's a ton to do in this very unique Chinese visual novel. Reviews to Go rates Gaokao Love 100 Days for the Nintendo Switch a 7.5 out of 10. If you have any comments, questions, or just need help getting onto an ending path, feel free to leave them below or head to the website at reviewstogo.com. Before I go, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my donators and patrons. I appreciate and use all donations that I receive to further both the quantity and quality of the content here on Reviews to Go. Thank you very much, and if any of you would like to donate, head over to patreon.com/reviewstogo, or if you'd rather do a one-time donation, head over to paypal.me/reviewstogo. Thanks again for watching the review. Have a great day.